Hey everyone, this is Nick from the Botch Pit, and today we're going to be talking about a source book for the World of Darkness and the Chronicles of Darkness called Second Sight, as well as the addendum Second Sight, Third Eye. In terms of history, Second Sight started out as a source book to the New World of Darkness, and very soon its advantages were apparent, and it was adapted into the Chronicles of Darkness core book. Third Eye is a second edition update of Second Sight, providing a mechanical update to the powers and abilities of psychics as well as thaumaturges and other mortal magic users. It also expands on various rules and systems for making use of them. Regardless of which game you are running, in my own opinion, this book is a must-have for beginning players. We will highlight exactly why a little bit later. Defining our terms further, psychics are those mortals that have unlocked a portion of their mind, allowing them to develop their abilities and utilize them with an unchecked level of sometimes even dangerous potency. According to Second Sight, while many that dabble with supernatural merits may call themselves psychic, none of them can compare to the focus shown by those that actually delve into the nature of their strange abilities like true psychics do. Their powers are divided into 5 categories: ESP, mediumism, psychokinesis, telepathy, as well as an other category for anything that doesn't fit within these 4 other branches. Thaumaturges are users of low or ritual magic, relying on an extended period of time to enact their supernatural abilities with an extreme degree of precision. Many effects that psychics and similar dabblers take for granted as happening quickly can be drawn out in a ritual, extending their power and effect through unique processes taught by the magical traditions that the thaumaturges became a part of. These magical traditions include Apostles of the Dark One, Ceremonial Magicians, Hedge Witches, Shamans, Taoist Alchemists, and Vodun. In terms of pop culture, psychic powers is one of the most common ways of introducing magic by any other name, or some sort of magic into a non-magical environment. And usually this is seen not only in horror but science fiction as well. The terms telepathy, clairvoyance, and pyrokinesis are all extremely scientific, however the powers are supernatural. In order of increase in power, the standard abilities are clairvoyance/clairaudience, which is that extrasensory perception or ESP, which allows one to, for example, hear something far away, see something far away, and they usually go in a trance-like state whenever this gets used. Retrocognition/postcognition, which allows a psychic to see things that happened in the past without watching recordings or anything like that. Precognition, which allows them to see the future in visions, such as like a prophet. Empathy, which is the ability to sense or heal another person's emotional state. Telepathy, aka mind reading, where thoughts are transmitted and suggestions are implanted. Telekinesis/psychokinesis, where objects can be moved around by pure willpower. Underneath this also includes pyrokinesis, which is to set things on fire, cryokinesis to freeze things, fulgurokinesis to create electronical discharges, and also biopsychokinesis, which is the ability to influence living tissue on the cellular or molecular level. Teleportation, which is the ability to transport objects or people from location A to location B. Mediumship, which is the ability to see, communicate, or channel spirits. And finally, past life regression, which is the process of hypnosis or meditative visualization for living or discovering previous experiences for one's previous lives. I would also like to point out at this time that the first 5 powers that we discussed deal with the internal environment, while the last 3 deal with an external environment. Moving forward, I'd like to discuss some pop culture icons that use one or more of these powers across a broad range of mediums. For anime, we have Akira, who has both Tetsuo as well as Akira. In comic books there are a ton, but specifically pointing to the X-Men with Professor X as well as Jean Grey. In television and films, we have Star Wars, an example being the Force through telekinesis, empathy, precognition, and mind control. I felt a great disturbance in the Force, as if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror and were suddenly silenced. I fear something terrible has happened. Think about it for a second. The Sixth Sense, specifically the character Cole Sear, Firefly/Serenity with the character River Tam. Also, I can kill you with my brain. In Stranger Things, we have the character Eleven. As for literature, we have a few examples by Stephen King with The Shining and the characters Dick Halloran and Danny Torrance, as well as the titular character Carrie. For video games, in Fear, we have Alma. In Psychonauts, we have Raz. In the Metal Gear Solid series, we have Psycho Mantis, and then finally we have Soldier G65434-2 from System Shock 2. Taking all of these icons into account, we can see just how creative the outcomes of Second Sight characters can be, which may not have been completely illuminated before beginning this broadcast. Hidden behind the terms psychic and thaumaturges are some really awesome abilities that allow for deeper character creation. Let's actually discuss character creation at this moment with Second Sight. Before even beginning to think about applying the Second Sight template, you need to be able to say exactly why and how your character has these powers. Now, this could be determined by your character's background prior to getting into the Chronicle, or maybe time has passed into the Chronicle itself where this character, for example, would need to hit a certain age before these powers became activated. My whole thing I'm trying to get at here is that there needs to be a reason to exactly why they have them. And once this is stated, that is the time at which you can apply the lesser template of Second Sight. And this is also known as the Supernatural Merit template found in Hurt Locker. Now, I would like to mention a lot of points of contention around Second Sight. According to rules laid out in the initial Second Sight, characters can only have one lesser template applied to them at one given time. Lesser templates, for example, would be not just psychics and thaumaturges, but also, for example, ghouls, hunters, and even the purified, which are from World of Darkness Immortals. So, what would happen is you would have to choose whether your character is a psychic or a ghoul. They can't happen at the same time. Now, your character can be turned into a ghoul from a psychic, however, they don't gain any of the benefits that a ghoul may have. Likewise, when the character moves from a lesser template, for example, psychics again, to a greater template, such as vampire, werewolf, or mage, they lose all the previous lesser template powers. At this point in time, I also want to point out that there is a very big difference between a lesser template and a greater template. Lesser templates don't have nearly the power that a greater template does. Whereas a psychic may be able to move a chair 5 feet with their mind and think they're the coolest thing on the face of the world, a mage could easily just bat one across 3 football fields without even thinking about it. And also, the magic used by mages is different than the ones used by psychics. The reason as to why a lesser template is removed when moving to a greater template has to do with the checks and balances of power level. Taking all of this into account, at the end of the day, it comes down to your storyteller and the rules that they would like to implement. I would like to offer how I see Second Sight to kind of help illuminate the way of going about this. Personally, my most favorite and gratifying moments in the Chronicles of Darkness, as well as World of Darkness, is seeing how a character develops over time. And sometimes I feel that the sheer jump from a human to one of these greater template characters can sometimes not feel as contained as it should be, if that makes sense. I like to see a little thread be pulled from that human character and it extend into one of these greater templates. In my opinion, Second Sight really shines when framed within this way of thinking. This is because it highlights some areas where overlap exists between humans and supernaturals, almost acting as a stepping stone. Werewolf shamans, vampires with the abilities of mind control and psychic vampirism, mages using forces that make pyrokinesis look like a joke, and mediums who spend their entire day helping out ghosts. Sounds an awful lot like Geist the Sin Eaters. And also, if a psychic, upon seeing the things that they've seen, takes up the vigil in the form of a hunter, which is another lesser template, it makes sense story-wise. And at the end of the day, that's what really needs to be accounted for. Rules are guidelines, however, they shouldn't be taken as complete fact, and can be bent depending on how the story wills it. I would also like to revisit my original point of this book being a must-have for beginning players. This frame of thought illustrates progression of characters, and as beginning players, that really needs to be instilled from the get-go. People just don't become another type of character instantly for no reason. You want to show how characters change over time, and Second Sight really helps bring that to the table. A point of interest in this book that I really enjoy is titled Things That Should Not Be, where you can create a ritualistic god of a cult that people follow that grants them these powers and how to administer them. And examples that they give are alien gods, chaos and chaos beings, demons from the outer realms, flaws in reality, and forces of entropy. It's a really neat section, and it gives you another frame of reference of how to go about granting these powers, say if the character didn't start with them. I feel as though this is an incredibly common trend with myself, is that I purchase World of Darkness or Chronicles of Darkness books based on the availability of merits that are presented within the books. Now, I'm really not sure if it's just me, because I feel as though a lot of people think the same way I do, but the merits that are presented in Second Sight not only made me want to buy the book, but it also changed the way I thought about creating characters. Within this book, there is a very clear indication of ranking and tiering of certain merits. You have to own certain lower tier merits before you're able to purchase higher tier merits. And the merits I'm specifically referring to are the powers used by both psychics as well as thaumaturges. If you were someone like myself who is always looking to add merits because there are never enough, this book is for you. As for Second Sight in the Botch Pit, it hasn't shown up too much. However, there was a recent character we introduced. His name is Virgil Izzy Blair, and he was built from the ground up using Second Sight Third Eye. As a quick synopsis, Izzy is a very nerdy paranormal investigator who also happens to be a medium, but the kind of quirk to this character is no one really ever believes that he's seeing the ghosts, but he does. Because the merits that he has, in addition to having the medium merit, has the ephemeral sight merit, which allows him to see these ghosts. Although we haven't gone too deep with his chronicle, it has a whole different flavor about how I'm going about this character than I have in previous mortals. For example, the inherent ability to be able to see ghosts as a regular mortal changes the game a little bit. And with our storyteller Chris picking up Geist's Book of the Dead recently, it's a lot scarier than it has been before, if I'm going to be completely frank. One of the coolest moments about this character is that unfortunately his mother has passed when he was quite young, but her ghost is still around him. So if anyone has ever seen The Haunting on Hill House, where Nell is trying to sleep on the couch and she looks up and the bent neck lady is just looking back down at her with her hair draping down, that happened. And it was one of the turning points for that chronicle where I was like, okay, this is going to be really, really good. And it's going to be a whole different way of approaching a human interacting with ghosts. It's just a really cool idea, and I'm looking forward to see how it turns out. As for the future of Second Sight, what I'm most interested in seeing is how this is going to interplay with Deviant the Renegades, the upcoming 11th core book for the Chronicles of Darkness. Mainly because although we don't know too much information in regards to what this book contains, what is interesting is that everyone compares it to Stranger Things. And as 11 in Stranger Things possesses a lot of these powers discussed in Second Sight, I'm curious to see how they'll actually interplay Second Sight into this game. When deciding whether to purchase Second Sight or Second Sight Third Eye, if you're more into the lore, I would suggest picking up Second Sight, but also, if you need the mechanics on how to work this into Chronicles of Darkness, you really need Second Sight Third Eye, which is only available as a PDF. As for my closing remarks on Second Sight, I really enjoy it because I love what it brings to the table, not just in the merits and the mechanics of the game, but how it shows a progression from a human into a supernatural a little bit smoother than these giant jumps you make from the vanilla human template to the greater template. The gift of Second Sight is both a blessing as well as a curse. Even though you get access to some of these awesome abilities, the payback is that you really can't turn them off, and sometimes they can go astray. This has been Nick from the Botch Pit. Thank you.